What's up guys, Phoenix here. This video is going to be another Deck Doctor video, and this time it's going to be on a Galaxy deck that was sent in by Caleb Logsden. Now if you haven't seen me play this deck, there are two videos of me playing this deck. I also played it a few times on my live stream, which if you're interested in seeing my live streams, there's a link in the description of this video to my Twitch channel. Go there, give it a follow, do whatever you want to do, and it'll let you know whenever I go live if you don't want to miss the next live stream. I also post videos on my channel at least 30 minutes before the live stream starts, so you definitely don't have to be too anal about trying to look for me there. But anyway, this was sent in to me through my Facebook fan page, and if you guys want to send a deck in for me to do a Deck Doctor segment on, preferably type out the deck list or send a YDK like dev profile. If you send an Imgur link, it makes it harder for me to find like the cards because I have to literally study the card art and figure out what it is. Especially if it's a card like from a newer archetype that I don't know, like the Moonlight stuff. Like I had an Imgur link to the Moonlight deck, and like that was literally the worst. I cleared out all my messages of old invalid decks, so if you had already sent one in, resend a new one in that is, you know, valid for the current format, and I'll be more than happy to take a look at it. I had to clear out my Facebook fan page logs because it was so backed up of old invalid decks that weren't legal anymore. But anyway, enough about that. Let's get into this. I've played this deck quite a bit, and I've been keeping tallies of what came up and what didn't, as far as like in the extra deck and stuff. I've got some notes off to the side of, you know, all the stuff that did and did not come up, and everything that I'm going to end up changing to get cut. These 5 traps. Oasis, Call of the Haunted is already here, plus you have a searchable form of it in the form of like Galaxy Zero, and then you have Soul Charge. You have all these cards that like actually give you recurrable plays, and I don't see the need for the other Oasis. Now, I understand that it's cool and all, being able to, you know, have Oasis, specifically to get, like, Galaxy Soldier back on your opponent's turn, but it doesn't actually come up that much. This deck was built very soundly. This is easily the most sound deck that was sent in for a Deck Doctor that I've seen so far, because it knew what it wanted to do. The only problem is that it seems to lack an identity of what format it's existing in. Choir, things like that, and games were longer. But this format, if you're trying to play it for this, you'd have to Lump Strike and Double Veiler and Double Breakthrough in here. Wiretap, nobody's really playing traps, so there's really no purpose for it. You can easily side these and put them in, but at that point you might as well decide Decree, to each their own. But then yeah, Oasis, literally that's just a lot of recursion cards, and I want this deck to be able to function well going first and second, and having 12 traps in there doesn't actually allow that. Instead, we're going to supplement the fact that some traps got taken out by adding in some more defensive cards, but these defensive cards are, you know, unique in the fact that they are discardable off Galaxy Soldier, thus making them pseudo combo pieces if you need them to be. So Double Veiler, Double Ghost Ogre, these two pairs of hand traps are defensive cards, but they are instance, like if you had gone second because your opponent chose to go first, and you opened, say, like a Wiretap instead of the Ghost Ogre, if let's say that's what we swapped out for these, then 1, if your opponent's playing Pendulums, you're at a disadvantage because the Wiretap's already dead. 2, if you go second and like that Wiretap is dead and you can't even discard it for Galaxy Soldier, whereas in this case this is good against Pendulums, and then this is also just a card that if you need it, great. If you don't, discard it for Galaxy Soldier. The entire deck's like main accessibility point is into Galaxy Soldier, strangely enough. Galaxy Soldier and Galaxy Wizard are definitely the bread and butter of this deck. They definitely get you where you need to be. Now, the trap lineup is actually fine as is. The only other thing that I was thinking about doing was swapping the emptiness out for another Solemn Strike, but this deck does have the functionality of being able to make first turn like Infinity and protect the emptiness. So there is that as an option that, you know, allows it to kind of be viable. Vanity's Emptiness is like one of those cards that I don't really like to play in decks unless there is a way to summon a monster to protect it, i.e. like start a Spark Dragon in Draenities, Master Key Beetle in like Evil Swarm, and then, you know, Infinity in this deck, because you can protect the card that is trying to, you know, keep it up. So regardless, keeping on moving is very important to get your cards into the place where you need them to be, i.e. like Galaxy Photon Dragon in the grave. You don't really want to cut it to 2, unfortunately. I thought about cutting it to 2, and I tried cutting it to 2 and tested around with it. But ultimately, like, the card is so important at 3. In fact, it might even warrant playing a Foolish sometime in the, you know, in the future. So you can open like Galaxy Soldier plus Galaxy Knight plus Foolish, and then like have that play. Yeah, Galaxy Eyes is so important at 3, but you just don't want them lingering in your hand. So trade in, just bumping that to 3 seems like it makes sense, because that allows you to, you know, use your Galaxy Soldier to get a fuel for like drawing into more cards, drawing into your traps, drawing into your cards like Call of the Haunted, your instant fusions, things like that, and getting things that is going to be added is the third Excel Light. This card isn't 3 of in my eyes, just because it gets you to your Galaxy Wizard, which gets you to every other card in your deck. I know it says that you can't normal summon or set during the turn you activate this card, and that sucks. I wish it didn't say that, so that you could actually, you know, Excel Light, Galaxy Wizard, and then you'd still be able to have a Galaxy Knight play. Like, that's the biggest thing that I want out of this card, but unfortunately that's not the case. And it says you can't normal summon Seraph Knight with Brilliant Fusion. You can't get around that. But this card is so important because this card is so important to be tributed to get Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon or Galaxy Knight, which thus fuels trade-in. There's 12 targets for this trade-in. There's 12 cards to make it live, and that's why I think it's justifiable to play it at 3. Just because it lets you dig into the rest of your deck, dig into the rest of your cards, dig into the very few non-searchable cards that you have, which are mainly like Instant Fusion and your traps, which are still power cards, and especially Soul Charge. Like, digging into that card is insane. I've been trying to think of like cards to cut to put upstarts in here, so you could just do nothing but try to get to Soul Charge. But I mean, that's actually just not viable. Like, I would rather just not. Even though this deck does have a very high ceiling in which for upstarts from the build that I'm thinking of making. But next change is going to be the third Instant Fusion. Actually, this card does everything for you in the form of Norden and Panzer Dragon. It allows you easier access into Cyber Dragon Infinity, and then it allows you access into these cards, as well as another card we're going to be adding later. It allows you access into these cards. Now, Instant Fusion, as it stands right now, isn't really a big, comeback card, a big blowout card in this deck, but this deck likes to go first. This deck likes to open with Galaxy Soldier, and if you have any hand with Galaxy Soldier Galaxy Expedition, that gives you a search plus, and that would also give you the ability to make Cyber Dragon Infinity. It just increases your chances of getting to these. You basically have a 9 of card set, 3 Galaxy Soldiers, 3 Galaxy Wizards, and 3 Excel Lights to get to the Galaxy Soldier. And then you have the 3 Galaxy Expeditions and 3 Instant Fusions that all told just allow you to get into Cyber Dragon Infinity. And like, considering Galaxy Wizard can search Galaxy Expedition, it can search whatever piece you're missing, like, the deck becomes very consistent at opening Cyber Dragon Infinity. Like, that's probably the card themes, like, it makes perfect sense. I'm going to move it down here just because I'm very anal and I like things to stay. Since I know this entire bottom row isn't being changed, I'm very anal about that. And it keeps my thought process more aligned when I deck build. Now, the last change by Galaxy Wizard, but it's also just better than Twin Twister in this deck, because this deck doesn't really have a lot of cards you're going to be trying to discard. Like, yes, you want like Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon to be in the grave to be used with all your other cards. Like, that's not something that's, up for running through card resources. And like, that's a card you could have discarded that you could have also just discarded for Galaxy Soldier. And we've already established this deck has tons of ways to get into Galaxy Soldier. And you just don't have to discard things. It's a bit slower. I just honestly think the card's a bit better for this deck. There are certain decks that Twin Twister has no place being played in. And this is just one of those decks, unfortunately. This is one of those decks where Twin Twister doesn't really get any value if you play it. Like, you're literally just 1-for-1ing your way into these cards, where you could have just, 1-for-1 with Galaxy Cyclone as well. Sure, Galaxy Cyclone doesn't hit pre-existing threats. You have to hit a set card, and then you have to be able to, banish it on the next turn. But I mean, still, that seems worth. This deck is very oppressive at doing what it's meant to do first turn, which is opening fields of like Felgrand Infinity or like any rank 8 plus Infinity. Like, this deck is very good at doing that. So I wouldn't really consider that to be that big of a problem. And like, this just gives the deck a little bit more, of a cohesive like theme to it. I mean, I don't want to use that as an argument, but it basically is. It's like, this card is searchable, so you might as well play more of it. Just because like the alternatives are MST and Twin Twister, and Twin Twister doesn't really have that much synergy with your game plan, because you're already starting the game going first, which is your ideal point. Your ideal game plan is to go first. And so, 1, Twin Twister is dead in that situation, and 2, Twin Twister just takes one more card away from you when you already started a card down. And a lot of your combos that go into first turn fields of like Infinity, Felgrand and stuff, outside of Soul Charge being the outlier, are taking -1s. So you're continually whittling down your card. The deck is very good at being aggressive and ending games quickly. And so in that essence, card resource doesn't matter as much, but it still does matter. It still does matter 100%. But yeah, this is the finalized main deck. And for the extra deck, there's literally only going to be one change, and that is going to be to add in a Black Rose, because there's a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit in here now, and that is a level 3 tuner. So if that works its way to the graveyard off Galaxy Soldier or anything like that, you can just instant fusion into Norden and get Black Rose. Now the issue is to cut the card that came up the least in the extra deck of all the games I played. And I kept a tally of this. I kept a tally of every single card that I made. And the cards that came up the least, i.e. the cards that I never summoned once, were Alcei and Daigusto Emerald. And between the two of them, Alcei is the card that's probably just going to go. Because the reasoning behind that is like this Alcei is very good at, just clearing a threat. I mean, that's not an issue that we've ever had, is Alcei clearing threats, because anytime you would clear a threat with Alcei, the reason you're going to be clearing that threat is because you have something like Galaxy Zero, a Galaxy Expedition play, or even better yet, like an Instant Fusion or a Soul Charge play. Now, instead of that, you can just make Heliopolis blow up more threats, or you can make Galaxy Eyes full armor Photon Dragon and pop the threat if it's face up, and then your Alcei becomes irrelevant at that point, because you're just going to follow up your play with Soul Charge or whatever it was you were trying to do to bounce the back row. If you're just trying to get rid of back row, like Alcei isn't the move. But the problem is, do the job of dealing with monsters so much better. Even like Prime Photon Dragon and Tachyon Dragon, like they all deal with monsters and face up cards better. The only thing that Alcei is usable for, really, is bouncing set cards, because that's the only niche that has Infinity out. You have like a Felgrand out. You can easily make Heliopolis. You can easily make Prime full armor Photon Dragon. You can easily make all these cards. So it just doesn't seem necessary to play it, and it just never came up in any of the games that I played. That and Emerald were the only two cards I never made once, but I could see Emerald coming up a lot more, simply because Instant Fusion is a 1-card Emerald, whereas Alcei, if you're trying to bounce a threat, like you're committing 2 8s into it, and at that point, you have better options. But yeah, Black Rose is being put in the extra deck because Instant Fusion into Norden, into Ghost Ogre, can just be a blowout. Like, that's literally what it's there for. And in that essence, it kind of replaces the functionality of Alcei as well, because like you can Instant Fusion into Black Rose, clear a board, and then use your plays, like use your Excel Light, use your Galaxy Expedition, use your Soul Charge, God forbid, like use all of these cards that you're just trying to get into. You can just do these things. But that's basically just the ultimate point of what I wanted to talk about. This is the final deck list of what I think that this is how I would play the deck. This is 100% how I would play this deck. So I'm going to use this in the coming videos, and just basically just play a couple games with it as per tradition of the Deck Doctor series that I do, and we'll just see how it goes. I think I might have been wrong, but this is how I would play the deck. I would play the deck to have more combo cards that are also functional as defensive cards, which is i.e. the Ghost Ogres. And then I would give the deck more standalone cards to actually get your plays moving, like the 3rd Excel Light, the 3rd Trade-In, and the 3rd Instant Fusion. So basically, playing this deck. And those videos of me playing this deck, Dr. Deck, will actually be going up tomorrow, because I've already filled out my day of all the videos I want to put up. But anyway, as always, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe to all the nonsense you usually do. Let me know what you guys think about this deck, Doctor, and this deck in general. Did you like it before I did any changes to it? Do you like it after? Let me know in the comments down below. Clicking that if you have not, I'd greatly appreciate it. It helps me make money, and there's no reason to lie to you guys about that. If you have an ad block enabled, please disable it. It helps me out more than you could ever know. Of my videos, there's a link to my Twitch if you want to go and follow that, so you get notified whenever I go live for the live streams. So if you want to directly support me instead of clicking ads, if you're one of those people that would love to do that and just donate a small amount, that's an option that's open to you, and it would be also greatly appreciated if you wanted to just donate. There have been people that have asked me how they could donate to me way in the past. I never really set up anything because I didn't feel like it was necessary, but now it just exists because of Twitch, so just put it there just so you might think it will. But other than that, next video you see will be me playing this deck. Of course, the Facebook link's in the description. Send decks to those, as I've already said. If you want me to do a Deck Doctor segment on it, send me a TCG legal deck. Because OCG decks, it's very few and far between that I'll be able to do Deck Doctors on them, just because there's nothing that's been established in terms of like how it's supposed to function in a format, and that's a main bit of like what my knowledge of change things around goes with. But I mean, we could give it a try. But anyway, if you want me to play a deck or want me to Deck Doctor a deck, send me a deck list to the Facebook fan page, because as I've already said earlier in the video, I cleared everything out, so it's completely clean slate for all the new decks that are coming in for the new format. And I'm probably going to do that every format, just clear it out. But anyway, that's enough rambling for now. That is all for this video, and as always, guys, take care.